All right, I want to welcome you all to the Aspen Collective Gallery. We're honored here to have Sam Prudden in the house. We're showcasing his paintings. I want to tell a quick story about our relationship and how we met. It was about 5 years ago through our close friend Eric Strauss. And I kept hearing murmurs, you've got to meet this guy, Sam Prudden. You got to see his paintings. He's evolving, he's making exciting work. And we met, then a couple years later we met again, and he invited me to Spain to see his studio. So I thought, why not? And I went to Spain and met him and his incredible partner, Maria. And of course, in their living room are 3 beautiful Ralph Steadman prints. And we get to talking about his inspirations, his life, and where he came from, and we'll get into that. But I just felt this incredible bond and friendship with him, which was enhanced by seeing these incredible artworks. And so at his studio, I saw this piece behind it, The Dance of Venus, and I saw this work, Meditations 2, and I thought, Sam, I can sell your paintings in Aspen. And sure enough, we sell this piece on opening night. So first of all, I just want to say we're honored to be showing your work. I think we're going to look back at this in time and think how lucky we were to be partnering at this point in your career. And I just want to ask you, just off the start, tell us about where you grew up and what your childhood was like here.
Okay, so first of all, thank you guys for coming out, and I'm so glad to be here with my friends and family, and it's just an honor. So growing up in Aspen's strange, and everyone asks you, like, what's it like growing up in Aspen? And it's, well, you don't know because that's the one place that you're from. But for me, it took leaving Aspen to understand what a special place Aspen is. Because what you have is normal, and what you don't have is different. And so coming back to Aspen made me appreciate like the mountains, first of all, the nature. My mom's a watercolor painter, and she's always shared that with me. But coming back, it's magical, and especially in the art side. And growing up, like, I didn't think it was weird to have like Hunter Thompson as a neighbor, have Jimmy Ibbotson up in the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band up the road. And like, I got to see artists making it all the time. And I always admired these guys, but I never really thought I could be an artist. And so to be able to have become an artist, to come back to my hometown, to be with all my family and friends, it's maybe the greatest feeling.
Mm-hmm. One of the stories that he shared with me that I thought was really special and beautiful was the inspiration that Maria had with you when you were living in Central America. And I wondered if you could briefly talk about this moment in time when you thought, why not?
So it's funny, I never thought I could be an artist. I always liked art class growing up, and it was my favorite class, but I was never like the good artist from the class. There was always the kids who's like, wow, look at what he's drawing, look at what she's drawing, and I was like, oh, I'm like kind of mediocre over here, struggling along. And so I met my wife, and at the time we got a job as teachers in San Pedro Sula, the second biggest city in Honduras. And it was also the murder capital of the world. So it was a very dangerous place, and it was kind of, I'd go and do my job, and you could go and hang out at the mall, you could go and hang out at the bars, or you could go home and watch Netflix. And after watching Netflix so many nights in a row, I was like, wow, we got a year to go. And so one night Maria's like, you know what? We're gonna go to the hardware store. I saw they sell canvas, and we bought a couple canvases and a little kit of acrylic paint. And I'm like, well, what should I do? She's like, whatever you want. And I think that's the first time in my life someone's like, just paint what you want, because there's always the art teacher being like, well, paint this guy, paint this fruit, paint this perspective drawing, paint this. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot cooler. And I did a couple paintings, and I remember clearly telling Maria, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And it's kind of crazy. That was exactly 10 years ago. To be from that moment to this moment is kind of, it's amazing. And
awesome.
It's awesome.
And this body of work, you call it, I screw up the pronunciation, but saudade, or say it?
Saudade.
Saudade. And there's a lot of meaning in that word, but I wondered if, before we get into maybe a specific, if you could just talk about the general theme of the show and the ideas behind it.
Definitely. So saudade is a Portuguese word, and my wife Maria taught it to me. And it really applies to my life, because saudade is like a feeling of strong nostalgia, of missing things that have been and can never repeat, or things that might have been. And if you stepped into my mind, I spent a lot of times thinking about what might have been, how good it was, what did we lose, and what might be. And so all of these paintings touch on that theme of something that I wish that could be, or some place that I wish that I was, or some person that I might have met. And so that's a strong influence in my art is saudade. And it's that feeling of missing something, and it's almost pleasurous and painful at the same time.
We get a lot of people walking in off the street talking about Matisse's influence, for instance. And I love that Ralph Steadman was a big influence. And when I look at this work, The Dance of Venus, this is kind of the piece that really captured my imagination when I was in Valencia. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your influences and potentially this painting.
Definitely. So, I mean, people always ask, who are your favorite painters, or what was your favorite time period? And I can answer pretty clearly. From 1900 to 1930, that group of painters are my favorite, and that includes a lot of legends from Picasso to Matisse to Andre Derain. I could go on, but I love that style of work. I love the colorfulness. I love the breaking with tradition, to stop doing super realistic pieces. And so that would be my greatest influence. But I also have been challenging myself lately to look at art I wouldn't normally look at. So in Spain, I'm close to the Prado, and you look at this old art, and you can walk through the halls of the Prado and just look, and you see one, you're like, it's amazing, and then you keep going down the hallway, and you're like, wait, all right, maybe I'm bored now, like, let's see something else. But one painter that captured my imagination is Peter Paul Rubens, Dutch artist, and I love how he paints people. You know, it's Rubenesque, as they say. And so I was looking at the way he drew people, and it's all exaggerated muscles and curves on their body, but it's almost violent, it's almost grotesque, but beautiful at the same time. And one that captured my imagination is called The Feast of Venus, and it's one of those paintings where a lot's going on. But there's one scene of this group of people interlocked dancing, and I was like, that part, there's something there. And so I've kind of been experimenting with this new style of painting where I don't do any shading, it's just pure color. And I said, what if I took these people who are kind of grotesque, kind of burly, kind of, you know, it's almost violent, and I'm like, what if I made it in these simple colors? I'm going to choose 6 colors, and I'm going to make a painting, and I'm going to kind of channel my energy into it. So I call it The Dance of Venus. And if you look at the Rubens, you can find that group of people, and you can kind of compare and contrast. But for me, it brings a sense of happiness.
We like to dance in front of this painting late at night with different fashionable people and capture ourselves within the painting. Another thing that really captures my imagination in the works is the multidimensionality, and I want to talk about the texture next, but how did you go from these solid colors to incorporating these really incredible geometric figures? There's this evolution in Sam's work that's really captured my imagination. When you see that painting and you go from something like that and then you look at this, well, he's making leaps and bounds, and this is a newer work. And so can you talk a little bit about the multidimensionality, the geometric figures, the layers, and we'll get into the texture next.
Okay, so about 2 years ago, I moved to Spain, and I've kind of started this new style. If you look at every painting, it's all pure color. There's no shadow or shading, but I wanted to include a sense of depth, and I started experimenting with that. So if you look at the Dance of Venus, there's no depth. It's just solid color. And then I've been toying with incorporating different elements, and also incorporating other art movements, because I'm a big fan of Bauhaus work. And it's like, so how can I stay true to what I'm doing figurative work, but I want depth, and I want to share my same message about introspection, nostalgia. And so this painting, I kind of created filters of color. So if you notice, there's no shading at all, but there's a sense of depth just through color and shapes. And it's almost like you're putting a filter. It's like, what if we put a red square here? What if we put this square here, but we let the light flood in, and to add extra dimension of depth to the work.
And when anybody comes into the gallery, one of the things I say to people is, look at the painting straight on, but then look at the painting from an angle. And we've got a talented team here, including Shane on the video and Nikki, who photographs our art. And we're going to be taking angle shots of the paintings, because to me, as a curator, when I look straight on, I see one thing, and then I come to this hard 45-degree angle, and it's like I'm looking at a whole different painting. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you about is your practice with the texture, and how is it that you actually paint these works?
So I've always been predominantly oil painter. I've done some acrylic work, but I'd say 90% is oil. And the reason I like oil is because it gives texture. Or it's actually like, it's a very versatile medium, and if you add paint thinner, you can thin it out and you can make it look like a watercolor if you want, but that's not how I apply it. I paint straight from the tube with zero paint thinner, and I like it because I can get that texture. And so these pieces are fun because it's very clean lines, almost graphic, but if you get close, you can see the texture and all the brush strokes, and it captures the light depending on the day. So these pieces will look different at any time. And I really like it. It's a challenge, but I'm very satisfied with how it's going.
We're all very impressed. And can you give us a little hint of where you're going next?
Oh man, that's a tough question. So it's funny you ask that, because, and I'll tie it into this painting behind you. And so this painting is called Meditations. And I'm not an expert on meditation, and I've just started dabbling with it. But what I do understand about meditating is living in the now, being present, enjoying the moment. And as I've said, I'm either like back here thinking about what I lived or what could have been, or like 10 steps ahead, what should I do? Where will I be in 5 years? And so meditations is kind of trying to like center yourself, enjoy the moment. You know, I'm here with my family and my best friends, and let me enjoy this. But back to your question on painting, when I paint, I'm always working essentially. Like when someone asks, how long does it take to make a painting? Well, and I'm sure they're asking, like, once you pick up the brush, how long does it take to make a piece? For me, I could say it's taken my whole life. There's a funny anecdote from Picasso, and he's sitting at a cafe doodling, and he makes a little drawing, and the waitress comes to pick up his check, and she's like, can I have your little drawing? And he says, yeah, for $20,000. And she's like, what? But this took you 5 seconds. He says, no, this took me in my entire life. And so what's in the future for me, I couldn't tell you exactly, but as I walk around, as I see colors, as I see people, as I see characters, I try to incorporate them in my work. And I'm always on my phone like, wow, that's a cool shape, that's a cool color combination. And so that's what I want to continue doing. And based on my prior experience, it always changes and morphs. But the themes of people and stories are always central to what I'm doing.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, well, we want to thank Sam for being here, and Maria and his whole family, and we're really honored. You can find Sam's work online. He shows in London, Mallorca, Aspen. He's got a great future, and we're honored to have had him here. And thank you again.
Thank you, DJ.
Welcome.
Yeah.